Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and my understanding, do the ask Supervisor Leggett. I don't know if he's on the screen or to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll ask the clerk to conduct a roll call.
Mr. Conover?
Here.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. Diamond?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Ms. Bramer? Here. Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Driscoll?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier? Here. Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Ms. Hogan?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson?
Here.
Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes, here.
Mr. Weil?
I'm here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Ms. Seaver? Here. Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Ms. Shepler? Here. Mr. Garrity?
Here.
Chairman Thomas?
Here.
Quorum is established.
At this time, I would like to extend the privilege of the floor to Assemblyman Dan Steck. Morning, Dan.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving me a couple minutes here to just say hello, check in since the last month's meeting. We still haven't gone back into session because, as you all know, we're still waiting to see what the federal government is or isn't going to do here. Talked with our Congresswoman a couple times last week, and I know that they're back in session. They're scheduled to be down in session for the next 3 weeks, and she was confident that in that time, whatever they're going to do is going to happen. So as far as what's going to happen to school aid and to aid to municipalities, those questions are still unresolved. But as you know, obviously we've started the school year again, and now this is a front and center issue for our schools as they're back in session and people are focused on schools again. The other thing, though, that I wanted to toss out that I know is an issue is the nursing home visitation. And obviously, the governor a couple days ago announced new rules as far as how long a nursing home had to go without cases, so people could attend and visit people inside. And it was 28 days, and now it's 14, and that went into effect yesterday, I believe. But now one of the new issues that sprung from that is people that want to go visit are being told they need to be tested, and if you're asymptomatic, you can't get a test. So that's something that my office is working with our contacts in the governor's office now to try to, get some guidance on that. People are anxious to get back in and see their loved ones, but they want to be tested, understandably. And obviously, the turnaround time on these tests is crucial, as we've all seen with what happened in Essex County and Essex Center. The lag time between getting a test and getting a result was so long that it wasn't very helpful. But that's kind of a side issue. So if you're getting calls from constituents asking about visiting people in the nursing home and complaining about tests, we're aware of that. You can certainly send them our way, or certainly I also am sure Senator Little's office is happy to field those calls too, but we're aware of it and we're working on it. So that was really the update that I wanted to give you this morning, and take any quick questions that you have. I'm going to jump over to the Washington County meeting here shortly, though. So don't be offended if I don't stay and watch your whole meeting.
Okay. Anyone have questions for Assemblyman Steck? Yes, Supervisor Simpson.
Good morning, Dan. I just want to know if I heard
Morning.
there was discussion on the constitutional amendments, that there was a time frame issue. And I just wondered, has that been decided that, it's outside of the time limit to be brought forth this year?
I've also heard of the time frame issue question, Matt, from my discussions with folks at DEC. but I haven't heard if they've gotten a firm resolution as to whether their timeframe issue is insurmountable or not. So I don't have an answer to that part of the question from DEC. But as a more practical matter, when and if we go back into session, like I said, it's going to be after the feds do their thing, and but we're also running up against Election Day, which as a practical matter means that I can't imagine that the legislature is going to want to spend any more time than absolutely necessary in Albany. So I think the time frame now, the calendar is working against considering these constitutional amendments before the end of the calendar year. I hope I'm wrong, but just looking at the calendar and the priority is going to be responding to what the feds do from a COVID perspective and trying to get any financial legislation out of the way that's going to be important for our schools and our municipalities. So, it's front and center for me. I'd like to see first passage on these constitutional amendments, as do you. But I haven't seen movement in Albany since we last spoke about this a few weeks ago.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I don't see anyone. Dan, thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and have a good day.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
Yep, everybody have a nice weekend. Thanks again.
Thank you. Next, we need a motion to approve the minutes for the August 21st, 2020 board meeting, subject to correction by the clerk, moved by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we have a report by Chairman of the Board. I attended the last set of committee meetings on August 24th and 25th. Also, the occupancy tax meeting on August 31st. Also attended personnel and finance on September 3rd. And on Friday, 9/11, I attended the joint meeting with Washington County with SUNY Adirondack. On September 10th, I was invited to make a few comments by Congresswoman Stefanik in Lake George at the High Peaks Distillery. It was the announcement of $3.2 million to the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board for the region. This will provide loans to businesses to help them cope with the COVID virus. And Wednesday the 16th, I attended the memorial for Ed Bartholomew along with many others. I did sign on to one letter, and that was a letter written by Mr. Biddle requesting our federal legislators to reinstate the J-1 visa program, hopefully by January 2021. That's very necessary for our businesses to get people to do the work for employees. And I also would like to congratulate Dennis Dickinson on his article by the Fund for Lake George, Profiles and Protection. I think it was a very good article, and congratulations, Dennis. You do a good job.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes my report. Reports by committee chairman on past month's meetings or activities. Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public safety met on August 24th. Before you is resolutions 322 to 332. 6 of them are agreements with certain school districts for providing school resource officers. The cost of that is to be covered by the school districts themselves. One is for an agreement with Niemer Ford for dealer-only repairs. Those 7 are from the Sheriff's Office. We have 4 from the Office of Emergency Services. 322 and 323 are appointments to the Warren County Fire Advisory Board and the EMS Advisory Board. 324 is an agreement for training with the new side scan sonar equipment to our Marine Rescue Team. And 325 is information access agreement with Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and FIMA The committee also sent various items to Finance Committee and Personnel and Administration for approval. Those will be before you under their committees. On September 3rd, I met with the budget team, reviewed the budgets of building codes, Office of Emergency Services, Traffic Safety, and Sheriff's Office. I'd like to commend Charles Wallace, Sheriff LaFar, Under Sheriff Como, Executive Assistant Monica Gerard, Director LaFleur, Assistant Director Amy Hirsch and Drexel, and Jennifer Ramsey for submitting those budgets. On Tuesday, September 15th, I sat with the interview committee for the Director of Emergency Services. The field of applicants have been narrowed down, and we'll have a joint meeting of Public Safety and Personnel Administration to interview the shortlist. On Wednesday, September 16th, I attended a NISAC webinar titled Policing 2020, What We've Learned and How Do We Change? It was based around the requirements of Executive Order number 203 and the plan that our Sheriff's Office will need to develop and have ratified by the board before April 1st, 2021. The sheriff and the undersheriff are working on this task now, and to our advantage, because the Sheriff's Office is accredited, they have much of the groundwork for the new plan already done. At the committee meeting on the last month on the 24th, the sheriff informed the Public Service Safety Committee that his office had a successful audit by the New York State Division of Criminal Justice and Services for accreditation. And that is something that less than 40% of the sheriff's offices across New York State can claim. Less than 40% are accredited. That is my report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No reports today.
Thank you. Supervisor McDevitt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of brief things in terms of maybe a recognition and acknowledgement of some of the things that happened in Warren County that maybe I learned something in the last week or two. But the bikeway or the bike path basically goes through my ward, and went out Wednesday to observe a group of volunteers and county employees planting a pollinator garden along the bike path right in the middle of my ward. Okay, this is a program that adds beauty to the trail, as well as having a fundamental ecological benefit in terms of pollination, in terms of a bee population, which is stressed throughout the world and accounts for 30% of our food in this country. To see these volunteers, Kevin, I think was through the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District was really refreshing. Another issue that was in today's newspaper, which I think is very, very important. It talked in terms of wetlands restoration in Warrensburg. It indicated. Well, thank you. The article indicated Warrensburg, but it was $1 million wetlands restoration along the Skirvin River that was unveiled, and I think I think we need to recognize major corporations that fundamentally do the right thing in this country. And this is a project. The owner of the property is Equity Lifestyle Properties of Chicago, that basically got involved with the project. They acquired the park, and basically this is an organization that owns more than 400 campgrounds throughout North America, and they funded the $1 million project. So I think it's important that we maybe acknowledge, companies like that fundamentally do the right thing. one of the things that caught my attention was that they basically, the wetlands are a spawning area for trout and other fish. And basically, they completed the project in time to, coordinate with the spawning. So it's a project that this is not their property. The property owner was quoted as, "We're not here for the short term. We're here for the long term. We want to give back to our community." So I think these people ought to be recognized and acknowledged for fundamentally doing the right thing. And maybe one other observation in terms of our visiting nurses one more time. I was at the Y last Sunday. I was actually out walking my son's dog and ran into a young lady that was exercising there. We chatted about Queensbury, and she is an elementary school teacher in Queensbury. And we talked about the two cases, children that apparently had COVID at the elementary school. And she couldn't have spoke more highly of the response of our visiting nurses. The buzz is out there, the word is out there, and this is a young lady that's lived in at least one other county in the state of New York. So I think there are a lot of good things happening in Warren County, a lot of good things that the public is unaware of. But I deeply impressed with our soil and water conservation district and basically the restoration of wetlands, in Lake George, Warrensburg, wherever it is, Kevin. They certainly should be recognized for doing the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, on that, Supervisor Sieber and I were able to attend their ribbon cutting yesterday at Lake George Escape Campground, and it was very impressive to see the improvements and the $1 million that they have invested. And what I took away from that was that they were very sincere about wanting to give back to the natural resources that have made their site so special and have been able to make them succeed for so long. So that was really great to see both the environmental and the economic piece coming together. As Chair of Environmental Concerns of Real Property, I did call 2 meetings in the last month. We had a few resolutions. One is 312, which is to authorize a parcel in the town of Queensbury to be conveyed to the town of Queensbury as part of the foreclosure proceeding. That's pursuant to our normal policy when a town would like to take a piece of property out of the foreclosure. And there are also 2 resolutions at the end of your packet, 361 and 362, related to the auction itself, which I will note we are still planning to hold ours on October 17th. There will be some special rules related to COVID, so we are passing this resolution 361 to put those in place. Basically, we will only allow 50 people into the courtroom at a time, so people are going to have to sign up to bid on properties by the town where the property is located. So hopefully people will have a chance to look at the packet beforehand, the packet of all the auction properties, and know exactly which ones they want to bid on. And we're going to make sure that we get that out on the website, and our public information officer, our communications officer, will get that out through social media so everyone sees it in advance, which hopefully will help. And there's another resolution related to the cost of the auction per the contract that we passed back in March. On the environmental concern side, we are continuing to look at the septic inspection at transfer law. We are going to do a little bit more collaboration and trying to garner some more feedback from people in the community, our stakeholders. And Chris Belden in the planning office has graciously agreed to have this discussed at a water quality meeting, which will be in October. It's October 14th. There'll be a lot of the usual stakeholders in this area. So people like soil and water and lake associations and code enforcement officers and that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to that. And it will be open to the public. It'll be on Zoom, but the public will be able to attend. And the other thing that we talked about at the very last meeting was an amendment to the New York State Constitution, adding to our constitutional right to a
clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment. And there was not consensus around doing that. I was disappointed about that, but people would like some more information. So we've asked an advocate from the Adirondack Mountain Club, Kathy Pedler, to speak to us at our next meeting, which actually is coming up very soon. It's on Tuesday in the afternoon, September 22nd. That's my report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no reports this time.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Human Services Committee met on Monday, August 24th. From that meeting, there were no social services or veteran services resolutions. There were 4 resolutions, 316 to 318 for the Countryside Adult Home. All 3 were agreement extensions to existing contracts. The 4th was resolution 319, which was requesting overtime and mileage for mandatory COVID-19 testing for staff members. Yesterday afternoon, I attended the Glens Falls Housing Authority's groundbreaking ceremony for their new administrative building. As many of you know, they're involved in a major development and redevelopment of their senior and family complexes. I also wanted to announce that open enrollment for public housing waiting list ends this coming Friday, September 25th. If you need more information, you can contact me or contact Bob Landry at the Glens Falls Housing Authority. That's the conclusion of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met on September the 3rd. We had a very lengthy agenda and special notice by the number of resolutions that we had. We have resolution 306, 307, and resolution 342 to 360. I'm not going to read those all over, but many of them deal with awarding bid and authorizing agreements with the lowest responsible bidder. Several deal with increasing the various capital projects, like Corinth Road, Quaker Road, and Railroad Track Restoration Project, and Warrensburg Road over Stone. So there are several like that. And if you look at 357, it's establishing a capital project for the Sagamore Road retaining wall. 338 authorizes the appropriation of funds from the general fund unappropriated surplus to the Department of Public Works budget. 359 increases the capital project for the Fire Training Center project. And then we have 360, which authorizes the appropriation of funds from the computer reserve to various departmental budgets. I also met with the budget officer and his team, and we went over the treasurer's budget for next year, which he did a very good job with. And at this point, I think Mr. Swan has a few words for us.
Good morning, everybody. I wish I had some good news for you today, but I really don't. We still have not received anything from the casino pact. We're still missing fourth quarter of last year and received nothing this year. Our medical marijuana, we have not received anything from that for this year. That's last year we received $208,000, just to give you an idea. The state reimbursements for things that we normally get through this time of year usually are at about $2 million. We're at about $138,000. So we're way short there. I just received this morning the sales tax information for August, and I will be sending out our usual report that we send out on Monday, but we're down about 500,000, which to me makes absolutely no sense, but that's my personal opinion. All the indicators that I look at say we should be even or even a little bit above on our sales tax. So I'm not really sure what's happening there. On the other side, we will have a decent report on the occupancy tax by next Friday, but we're seeing quite a bit of large checks coming in right now. So I'm kind of encouraged about the occupancy tax. I don't want to get over optimistic, but it looks like we've got some good returns. It looks like maybe the summer was pretty strong, hopefully. Got my fingers crossed. That's about it. Any questions about anything anybody might have?
Supervisor Bremer.
Thanks. I guess on the sales tax, what is the percentage that we're down? I think I was seeing in a comptroller report recently that the North Country, was one of the lowest drops in percentage of sales tax.
Well,
We were like the least bad, which was kind of
Yeah, that's
good,
true.
good news for us, but also makes sense because we had a lot of people coming here.
The last month, we were down about 7.5%. Okay. I haven't, unfortunately, because it came in, I just saw the figures just before I came up here, so I didn't have a chance to actually do the percentages and so forth. We'll get that out to you Monday morning. But I mean, it does not make sense to me that we are down in sales tax. Car sales are up. Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Target, Amazon are all record profits right now. I know we have some businesses that are not doing well, like some of our resort places that do weddings and those types of things. Their business is down. But the plus side, I think, more than outweighs what they might be down, especially the car sales. Car sales are 10% of what we collect in sales tax. That's our biggest chunk. And all the car dealers that I talked to said that May, June, and July were record. I mean, they sold more cars than they sold in years, 3 months. So I don't understand why our sales tax is down, unless, well, I kind of have an idea, but I think the state is basically holding back because they're in a cash flow problem, and we have no way to know.
Mr. Administrator.
Sorry, I think the two withholdings that the state is doing, one for the marketplace transactions and the other, I think that they already do the distressed hospitals
No, that's coming in January.
in January. But so both, then the other one is at the end of the year, beginning of the year too, right? So
Right.
that's not the factor.
Right.
Yeah.
We haven't even got to those parts yet.
Yes, Supervisor Bremer.
Thanks. Just a quick follow-up. What about the outlets? They didn't seem super busy over the summer, so maybe that's part of it?
Well, every time it rained, the traffic was backed up all the way down to Great Escape. So I don't know. To me, that's always been the indicator to me.
Yeah.
Is how good they're doing when it rains, is to see the cars. And when the traffic is backed up all the way down to Great Escape, I got to say that they're doing okay. Maybe not records, but they're doing okay. And I've been in Lake George every weekend this summer just to see what's going on. And the crowds are unbelievable. There's more people than I've seen in the last few years.
Supervisor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's no way that we're just at the mercy of whatever money we get from New York State. They're saying this is what the sales tax is.
Absolutely.
There's no checks and balances.
We have no clue where that money's coming from, how much is being collected, or anything else.
Can we ask?
Yeah, I've asked, believe me.
I mean, I just don't understand that, is that we have to watch every single dollar and explain where everything dollar that we have goes, but yet the state collects all this sales tax and we have no idea.
That's the way the
Where it
law,
comes
that's the
from.
way the law was written. So we have no ability to audit, check, or even know who is paying what.
Thank you.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. And not to change subjects, Brad, I hope the governor answers your question on that, but I'm not sure if this should go to our treasurer or to our county attorney. And I apologize for not looking at your mic because I'm trying to talk into the microphone. But last time we spoke earlier this month, you were about to have a meeting with Airbnb. And I was just wondering if there was an update on, those talks and where we're at.
I'm not sure how much I can say on that, but we have had one meeting with them. We have another meeting scheduled with Airbnb for, I can't remember off the top of my head, it's within the next 10 days. And they seem to be at the first meeting agreeable under certain circumstances to collect for us on the short-term rentals. But it's going to take a little bit because the way they want to do it and the way we feel it should be done, we're at the opposite ends of the spectrum right now. So we're going to have to do some negotiating to get that back in. We're also talking with them about monies that may have been collected from 2018 until now, which is a different conversation. We're basically working on two things with it. One is collection and the other is the past due collection.
Any other questions for the treasurer this morning?
Chairman?
Supervisor Gary, just
You know, I would appeal to our businesses in Warren County to reach out to you, Mike, and tell you how much they submitted to the state for the last 3 months, because this is going to have an impact on the budget. And it's going to have an impact on the taxes they're going to pay. So if we're not getting our fair share, or we don't believe we do, and I'm with you, I don't believe we are, maybe we should appeal to the businesses in Warren County to send us their computation that they sent into the state of New York, so we could see if they would do that. Maybe they won't. Maybe it's a lot of work. I don't know how many businesses contribute to sales tax in the county, but it seems to me like if they know it's going to impact them in January on their land taxes, they would be more than willing to reach out and say, well, here's what we sent into the state of New York. You know, I mean, I guess that would be the only way, if everybody honestly would tell you. But that would be the only way you can do checks and balances on what the state may or may not be keeping from us. So, I mean, I just think it's.
I have talked to a lot of businesses, okay? And almost all of them that I've talked to have said this summer was a record year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you know, car dealers can't get cars to sell.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and that's 10% of our sales tax is car sales. And that's up 30% over a 3-month period. Where's that sales tax?
right, and that's the only way, because, you know, it's pay me now or pay me later type of scenario. You know, I mean, I feel bad that we may have to adjust the budget when the state of New York may be squeaking some of this money and holding it in Albany. I mean, look what they said about the school districts after the school districts made cuts. Well, we didn't tell you to make the cuts, but they did that when they were reacting to negative press. And maybe we need to get it out there that we feel that we're being shortchanged. I can't speak for any other counties, but that would be one way, is to tell your business people that come to you and say, well, this is what we submitted.
Now, normally they do an adjustment at the end of September, sometimes into October. So I'm hoping that maybe that we will get something then, but I don't know.
I know it's a lot of work, but it doesn't seem right.
Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not to belay this, but two things. Number one is I like what Mr. Garrity said, to actually get some information from the businesses to see how much they've submitted for sales tax. That's one way of maybe getting a better handle on this. This being left out in no man's land with the state and how much they collect in sales tax and so forth has been going on, Brad, for a number of years. And you asked a good question, and we've been trying. I know I've tried to get Mr. Swan to see if he can tighten up with the state, and it's out of his hands. Sadly, the state basically gives us what they think we should get, and they don't verify the numbers. And it gets very disconcerting, especially now that we're in a major financial crunch. But switching topics real quick, Mr. Swan, we hired that one lady, one position dedicated to collecting OC tax about 2 years ago, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in that position, that lady's done a phenomenal job of getting businesses to somewhere trying to slide. Unfortunately, 99% of all businesses are good, but 1 or 2% always try to cut the corners and slide.
So you made a comment that you're going to go back to 2018 to collect additional OCTAX. So explain that again to me. I mean, is she saying that there's some that we haven't gotten, or does she didn't get to, or I'm a little confused there.
All right, well, first of all, I gotta correct you on one thing. The woman we hired left after 6 months, and we now have a man that is doing the job.
Okay.
Raphael, and he is doing an excellent job with the audits. He's hitting 25 to 30 places a year, and is doing an excellent job. This board passed in 2018 the additional provision to collect occupancy tax from short-term rentals. Okay. We haven't really collected an awful lot over that period of time. We do have some indications that Airbnb and some of the other internet providers may have collected some tax during that period of time from people and not remitted it to the county. So that's what we're working on right now.
Wow, so you're saying they collected the tax?
Well, I can't say 100%. I said it appears that they may have. Okay, at this point, I don't want to say that they actually have, but I'm trying to hedge around this, Supervisor.
Yeah. Okay.
Not go too far legally, because I can see the county attorney's office is probably going to start flagging me. But
okay, so when do you think we'll have an update on that?
Hopefully within the next month or two. That's what we're working on right now. To be honest with you, we're right now in the middle of trying to register every short-term rental in this county. My estimate is there's about 950 of them. It takes my staff about an hour to do each registration that comes in. So we're kind of busy right now with those because the registrations are coming in fast and furious.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mr. Swan. Thanks, Mike.
Supervisor Conover?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, just you wouldn't by any chance know just off the cuff what we would normally receive or what we received last year in August, would you?
In what?
Would it be north of 5 million? Would it be?
In sales tax or?
Yeah, sales tax, excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, it's usually, yeah.
Okay. I only mention that because, I mean, we are involved in a pandemic and we have had an impact on our business community. But it'll be interesting to see what that percentage is for August because if it's, I mean, last month it was 12.7%. In June, it was 20.2%. In May, for some interesting reason, it was 8.1, but in April, it was 26.6%. So if tracking is any condolence, I think it seems to be tracking in the right direction. It's just that now we're into the higher parts of the month. And so $500,000 against something north of $5 million or more is, at least it's moving, it seems to be moving in the right direction. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and so our overall year to date was down 7.2% because the first quarter came in positive. So that average might tick up a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see the August and the September numbers for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize for not having the information to you today.
Oh, no, I understand.
Because I walked in this morning, so.
Sure.
We'll have all of the percentages in the normal report that we have out Monday morning.
Anyone else?
Just a quick thing to put some numbers there. I actually pulled up Rob's report at 4.8 million last year in August. And 4.5 the year before. But the piece I made reference to earlier with the state sweeping the local portion of the sales tax, two state budgets ago, it would be April of 2019 was when they did the first one. And we talked about it at this meeting that it wouldn't be the first. And a year later, we had the second. So the number for us for the first one was 225,000. And then the one that they just did to us this year in April was 553,000. Now, those haven't hit us yet. They hit us, as Mike said, in January. So that's $777,000. That is not a small number for Warren County.
The first one they'll deduct from is December. And then the second one, which was this Express Hospital thing. That they're gonna do quarterly starting in January.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Swan. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personnel and Administration Committee did meet September 3rd. And out of that committee, we have resolutions starting with 335 through 341. I'll highlight a few of them. 338, we made an edit or an addition to the Warren County policy against discrimination and harassment. And we added language including that any findings of wrongdoing be reported to the Personnel Administration Committee within a 60-day time frame, provided there was no delay required by law enforcement. And then 340, we authorized continuation of our Medicare Advantage insurance plan, which has turned out very well. We hear a lot of positive comments on that plan, and it's been very good for Warren County. 341, we authorized continuation of the health, dental, vision, and voluntary life and accident insurance for our county officers, employees, and retirees. With that, that concludes my report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As always, Cornell Cooperative Extension has been very, very busy. Upcoming events, they're offering a community parenting program. These will be offered via Zoom each Thursday night in the month of October from 6 to 8 p.m. The 5-week series will focus on replacing ineffective or hurtful parenting styles with effective child-friendly skills, and will teach 5 basic parenting skills that highlight key parenting issues. You should contact Cornell Cooperative Extension to sign up. On Saturday, October 17th from 1 to 4 p.m., from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., they will hold their Achievement Day, which recognizes all of the participants in the 4-H programs throughout the year. In addition, this year, they'll be doing it as a service day to support 4-H community projects. And people, again, can sign up at the Cooperative Extension. Their final offering for the public, well, they offer many things for the public, but the big one for coming up is family budget coaching. This grew out of their very popular tax preparation program. They are putting some of those folks to work in other times of the year to offer free program for families and individuals who want to get a better handle on their financing. They will be offered through one-on-one appointments with trained volunteers, and they have locations in Glens Falls, Johnsburg, and Warrensburg. And again, call Cornell Cooperative Extension to sign up. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Merlino?
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Dickinson, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Frank. You gave me enough credit in the beginning. I guess you skipped over it. OCTAX didn't meet on the 31st of August. You got 2 resolutions. 320 is just some housekeeping with the COVID and cancellations of events. We've gotten money back. The second one, 321, Chairman Thomas, I'd like to make a motion to table that one when it's a proper time.
Okay.
And that's my report.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Merlino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tourism is going to meet on the 28th of September for our budget to the budget officer and committee. We're still tweaking it a little. We finished up on fall advertising. We're going to start working on winter advertising. That's my report. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Stroud?
No committee report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Wiley?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm going to break the trend here and have quite a few things to talk about in terms of economic growth and development. There's no resolutions in front of you today, but I thought I'd give everybody a quick update in terms of what's going on with the Economic Recovery Task Force. It is a great cooperation between public and private entities working at trying to maybe create a backstop for our sales tax gap by growing our economy. And one of the results I think everyone's seen is what happened with Lake George, although we can't take credit for that. COVID was a big part for people not having a place to go that felt safe. We're fortunate that Lake George was one of those considerations, and we did well. But we did have a group led by Mark Bean that's been working on communication and strategizing in terms of what we need to do to help keep Lake George going through the pandemic. And also the big focus now is how to expand our fall and winter activities within the county. So that's coming up. Of note, like to say Lake George, Lake Champlain Regional Chamber of Commerce, but it's really the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Chamber. They were awarded a $2.9 million grant. This is a COVID relief for our businesses. And actually we have an effort underway to provide consulting to at-risk businesses to try to help them understand how they can dig out from the hole that the pandemic has created for them. And you'll hear more about that as we go forward. From a workforce standpoint, child care, hospitality, pipeline in terms of the people that we have for supporting that business in those industries. Training and transportation are high on the list from a workforce standpoint. From an EDC, Economic Development Corporation, I was also at the event honoring Ed Bartholomew. It was a great event, and he's going to be surely missed. But the three focuses that are currently on their list are broadband, water and sewer, and solar. And more to come on that later this month. There will be a special economic and growth development meeting specifically tied to the EDC, their plans, their goals, and I welcome everyone to join in on that. Also out of this task force is we're looking at policies that are federal, state, as well as possibly local policies that are causing us trouble in terms of growing our businesses, growing our economy. We mentioned earlier about the J1s that Chairman Thomas sent in on a letter. There's also policies regarding benefits for individuals, those with disabilities. They may be getting benefits today, but if they go and get a job, they could risk those benefits. So we're looking at a way to say, is there an opportunity for some transitional benefits to allow these people to get back to work without risking all of their benefits that they might have currently today? It's one of the drawbacks, and it's one of the things that we're going to be working on. Gene, we didn't talk so much about tourism, but again, the fall events, but there's also an effort underway for metrics. How do we measure our return on the investment? Are we putting the money in the right spot? Are we capitalizing on areas where we're seeing we're getting a bigger influx of people from? So that's moving forward. SUNY 80K, we had a budget meeting this month with SUNY Adirondack. They have also made significant cuts to their operating budget. They're worried about what the state's going to do to them also. And we'll just have to stay on top of that. But they are in session and they are doing testing, and so far so good. And I would be remiss about not mentioning the census. The census, there's a big sign behind our chairman and our administrator. We have very few days left to get everyone signed up. So if we can spread the word, sign up for the census. It means a lot to the county and to our individuals for the amount of federal funding we get. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quiet month there with the support services. We did met with all my departments and working on the budget, and I'm happy to say that we're finding the savings, where we can. It's difficult. A lot of my some of my departments are a little small, but we're moving forward there. And just along with all the other committee meetings that I have attended, we've had a great month, and I'm looking to support a lot of the resolutions that we have here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Criminal Justice Amendment on August 24th in front of you today are resolutions 309, 310, and 311. Two of those address grant applications, and the third talks about a case management system and our renewal with that. There are a few other things that fall both under the criminal justice world and activities this month. I wanted to just highlight that this morning I had an opportunity to meet with Kevin Hajos and Frank Morehouse. Criminal justice, what came out of one of those meetings and referred to facilities was a discussion about a brick walkway for crime victims. And I think that while the paper did two nice write-ups on it, there was a lot of confusion in the community. So I wanted to take an opportunity to just reiterate that these bricks are Warren County crime victims. Many times the victims' families or sponsoring agencies paid for those bricks. And it does look like perhaps we'll have an opportunity to see if we can work that into the schedule at a very low to no cost whatsoever out front, and also looking perhaps to the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts for their Life for Equal projects to help perhaps with the bench. So I think there's some opportunities there as well to continue to honor those crime victims. And we also, this morning, or our last meeting, we also had a discussion about space for the Public Defender's Office. You'll recall we tabled a resolution that would have been a lease agreement with some concerns there based on recommendations from our county attorney's office. That search for space is still ongoing, and I appreciate all the efforts of our staff and of Supervisor Beatty and our county administrator to make sure that we do that, hopefully in a very expeditious fashion. Continuing on, I had an opportunity this month as well to attend some of the budget meetings, and I've been critical in the past of, as our Mr. Chairman is well aware, some of the budget happenings, and perhaps not having a full invite list out to the board members or having that done in a transparent process. Over the last couple of years, I appreciate the opportunity to be invited and to see what goes on at more than just my own committee oversight departments. And Kevin, hats off to you and the county administrator, because not only did he make sure that that process was transparent, he allowed an opportunity for questions to be asked from everyone who was sitting around the table. And I don't know if you get enough compliments on it. And I don't want to make your, a big enough narrative to walk out the door, but I am impressed with that process and appreciate that transparency. I did attend a NISAC seminar yesterday that talked about social media and how in a socially distant world, we continue to have to use technology. And it brought up a lot of similarities that we have as we reach a 6-month mark of having a marketing or not marketing, but a communications director in Don Lehman. And I would just like to ask that perhaps the personnel meeting, he falls under our county administrator's division, is that maybe we could have an update on the significant growth since January that we've seen in our county. Yesterday, even handing out masks and hand sanitizers at the mall, you would have been amazed at how many people showed up because Don Lehman put it on our Warren County Facebook and Twitter page. And they showed up with questions and concerns and compliments, and they were there for that purpose. And I just thought we're seeing the growth in the communication. And I applaud those efforts. And I think that maybe having an update on exactly how that's grown over the last 6 months. And NISAC highlighted the importance of that as well yesterday in their training. So perhaps that's something we could add to an agenda to let our community know what's going on there. I wanted to also thank Dennis Dickinson. He probably made an offer he didn't think I'd take him up on last month regarding occupancy tax, but he has been kind enough to extend a few weeks for me to continue to look into some recommendations on changing of that scoring and application process. So I appreciate that, Dennis. Yesterday, I attended that Mask Up press conference and heard a lot of really positive things from the community about changing something that perhaps is well, it's always been there, is not something that we necessarily follow or can follow every single year. So seeing that update and moving that deadline is very helpful. As always, I continue to attend our National Association of County meetings. I had 2 public safety meetings this month with them and 1 Resilient Counties meeting. Given this is already long, I also wanted to highlight that among all of the budget discussions and the COVID response, our county administrator this month got back on two critical issues to members of our Queensbury constituency and impacted a statewide effort. And while we might look at different professions and wonder how COVID is impacting them, when we talked about the growth of some, I think there are definitely professions that we haven't really talked about how crumbling it has been to their business. So when the Association for Estheticians reached out with concerns about how they can go ahead and still practice, it wasn't something our county administrator took lightly. He advocated on their behalf, worked with the control room, and because of that type of advocacy, we quickly saw a change. I appreciate the time and attention in a very busy schedule that you gave to both that, questions from LARAC and other constituent concerns. But when they come in, we're very quick to turn them over, both not only I've utilized Don, but also to our county administrator. And so I want to make sure publicly I thank you for that. And when there is an appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I do have questions regarding resolution number 1 that's requested to come off the floor. And that concludes my brief report. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed hit the unmute button. Just one resolution on your agenda today. It's resolution 308 from the county facilities, the airport. It's basically the agreement with one of the engineers with the construction of the new T hangars. It's nothing exciting, nothing earth shattering, and nothing out of the ordinary. And that's the only resolution from county facilities that is in front of you today. I did want to make just a couple comments. The memorial service for Ed Bartholomew, I decided not to attend at the last moment only because of the amount of people under the advisement of my doctor, but who by the way, is my brother who is going to attend too. He's a doctor and he said it wasn't a good idea. But anyway, for us personally, Ed was a huge asset to this county, to the town, to the city. I think I mentioned once before, he performed the services over my mother's funeral. She requested him and he was gracious enough to do that. And that always will hold a special place in my heart for the man. He was the phenomenal public servant. And I once asked him a question. I said, Ed, is there any butts you haven't kissed in Warren County this year? And he said, no, I can't find any I have. And he says, but if you know there's any new people, let me know. So he was good at connecting with everyone in a positive way. And obviously we all benefited from that. On one other note, our county facilities meeting is next week, obviously. It's going to be a very important meeting, in my opinion. I always go over the agenda with Kevin Hajos and Don McGraw beforehand. But Forest Enterprises, if you recall, we took their land prematurely thinking that the runway was going to go in. The court awarded them another $195,000, $193,000 additional dollars from what we paid for their land. And now they are asking for an additional $270,000 for their attorney costs, their appraisal fees, and the interest. So obviously this is going to be an important discussion in next week's meeting. We're looking at about $500,000 additional. And so I encourage all county facility members to attend that meeting. Again, that'll be Tuesday morning at 9. And any other supervisor wanting to know potentially how $500,000 may go out the door because of our past poor decisions, I'd like them to attend too. So that will conclude my report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Supervisor Shepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no report at this time.
Thank you. And our budget officer, Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank the department heads and staff for putting together realistic budgets. We're still working on getting into a tentative budget for the board. I'd like to thank Ryan Moore for his late night work on looking at all these budget codes. We do agree on, I would say 99% of what we've come up with. I'd like to echo Peter's comments about public health. I heard today from a person just saying how Warren County Public Health is thought to as the go-to health facility around. When people have questions about the pandemic, they will call Janelle and get her opinion on it. And last but not least, something I normally wouldn't do, but Dennis mentioned that he's going to ask for tabling resolution 321. I will be opposed to tabling something that we in committee thought was the best thing for the county based on the revenues coming in on occupancy tax. That's my report.
Thank you. Report by county administrator. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to skip you, Ron. Supervisor Conover. I read the other lines.
Yeah, I know, and you didn't have those kind remarks right in the beginning, but that for me. But anyway, the Public Works met on August 25th. Most of this is fairly straightforward, but I'll just briefly comment on a few. 333, a big thank you, of course, to the new group, Friends of Up Yonder Farm. If you get a chance and you're looking to stretch your legs up on top of the hill with a beautiful view of Lake George, there's now a very nice, beautiful sitting bench and one of these telescopic viewers that were installed up there for people. And the design of the bench came from our friends at Stony Creek. Thank you, Frank. And constructed by our DPW department. And so the Friends of Up Yonder continue to raise money privately and make investments at Up Yonder. 334 are funds from the Fund for Lake George for the purchase of brining equipment. We certainly want to extend our thank you to the Fund of Lake George and for this equipment, and also it's going to help us, of course, reduce the use of salt on our highways, which is good for the environment and good for our pocketbook. The 335 is the creation of a construction specialist position, but that's accompanied by the deletion of 2 other positions. So that pretty well balances out. And 336 is autopsy services going back to Glens Falls Hospital. And I'm sure that our folks are happy about that, if only for the convenience. 337 and 338 deal with workplace violence and our harassment policy. Updates. 340 is the continuation of Medicare Advantage plans through Humana for our retirees. And 341 is the continuation of our health plan, life accident with Blue Shield. And if I remember correctly, we're very pleased that it doesn't appear there are going to be any premium increases going into next year. And that, of course, is good news, given the other impacts to our revenue. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone. As most of you, I think, know, we had a terrible fire here in Bolton. Lost a real landmark building on our main street. Certainly our heartfelt sorrow goes out to Nicole and her family, the owners, and just a word of compliment to our responders, not only the Bolton responders, but the many towns that also responded to the blaze, and our Women's Auxiliary for supporting their efforts. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll have the county administrator, Administrator Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the 35th employment anniversary of Juliana Pearl in our DSS department. 35 years, quite an accomplishment. Congratulations to Juliana, and thank you for your dedication to the county. I did want to mention some Google mobility statistics, which were brought to my attention by NISAC. Google has the ability to take cell phone data and monitor how many out-of-towners are typically in an area at any given time. They can benchmark it and compare it to prior years. So that's what they did in the month of August. NISAC pulled these figures for us. Out of 62 counties in the state, only 18 did better in August 2020 than they did in August 2019. The number 1 county in the state, 72% better, was Essex County. Number 2 is Warren County, 38% better than we did last year. And it's actually something on paper that's scientific that shows you what we've been hearing anecdotally that Treasurer Swan mentioned, and what we've certainly been seeing out on our streets, is that we have had a big summer here in spite of the pandemic. And because of all the efforts of our businesses to make sure that we provide a safe experience. So to Supervisor Sieber's comments about spending time on these businesses and advocating for them, it's the most important thing any of us can do. And I know that everybody in this room knows that, but they've really worked hard this year to try to continue to position Warren County in a good place, and they've succeeded. That's why I will drop everything when there's a business that is in need of something from the state. We don't always get it, but we will always advocate for their concerns and their needs when they're providing a safe experience and really going out of their way to do good work. We appreciate it. I have these numbers if anybody else wants to see them. Just to give you an idea, Essex was way up there. Warren, I said, was 38. The third place county was at 30%. That was Wyoming. And then Sullivan County was 20% up, and Tioga County was 15% up, and everybody else was down in the single digits. Those are all small counties. I think Warren County out of those 5 is the largest county. So I think that is a good accomplishment. We're keeping an eye on the situation in Washington as to whether we get a federal aid package going down to states and localities. We still don't know whether we will or not. NISAC is highlighting an effort right now by the Bipartisan Congressional Problem Solvers Caucus. And NISAC has stated that, if anything is going to go forward, that sort of a program that caucus has put out there probably has the best shot of going forward. They did acknowledge several members of the New York State delegation that are on that caucus. The caucus itself is co-chaired by Tom Reed out in central New York, also Tom Swazi in Long Island, Anthony Brindisi, John Katko, and Max Rose down in Staten Island. They're all members of the Problem Solvers Caucus. So fingers crossed, whether it's that, whether it's a different plan that's out there. There are a lot of plans out there. There are a lot of plans that have good elements in them. We're just hopeful for something, because the state budget is predicated on that federal aid. And if that federal aid does not come in, the governor has the authority to take the divisional budget and go in and sweep our state aid. We've been told 20% is what's likely going to come off if the governor has to exercise that option. 20% for us is $3.5 million. We've also been told that because of the state's multi-year forecast, we can expect that cut to continue, that 20% cut made permanent. We can't sustain that. If we have a $3.5 million cut for 1 year, it's going to be hard. We can do it, but it's going to be hard. If we have it for year after year after year after year, forget it. Our fund balance, rough justice, $20 million, maybe a little more, hopefully by the end of this year. If you take a $3.5 million cut for 3 years, you're down below $10 million, and we're borrowing to meet payroll. We don't have the cash in the bank to pay people's paychecks at that point. So these are very real stakes. What Washington does in the next couple of weeks is very important. And if Washington fails to do anything, what the state does to react to that is also very important. This is everything that this county has worked hard to build up. It is in jeopardy. Moving on to the glamping issue, on August 25th, the Public Works Committee discussed this issue at length. The committee's been discussing this issue since May, and the supervisors that were in that discussion, there was some hesitancy to terminate this contract, and the will of the committee was to try not to do that unless it was a mutual agreement. They asked that the county staff go out and discuss whether there was any appetite for a mutual termination. The vendor doesn't believe that that's fair because of the situation with the pandemic. They were just not able to provide the service. They didn't pay the county. I think it's all understandable. We did, at the time, the committee members asked what the contract stated about termination, and the answer was not very adequate. So I'll read to you what the contract states. This contract was initially for June 12, 2018 through September 21st, 2018. And then it says the agreement may be extended for up to 4 additional terms to generally coincide with the dates referenced herein for summer 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, upon mutual agreement of the parties and with the concurrence of the superintendent of public works. In other words, this was a 2018 contract, and we built in that clause to say on mutual agreement from all the parties, it can continue year to year. It'll be evaluated each year. I sent an email to the vendor, the glamping, is Adirondack Safari, I believe. Let them know that that this is in the contract. I attached a copy of the contract, stated that the board did not have the will at that committee to just unilaterally terminate the contract. I told them we're not going to terminate the contract for this year. There's no need to do that. No harm, no foul with what happened this year. But I did say that we will be putting out an RFP to test the waters on whether there's anything else out there that we can be doing with the fairgrounds. I'll read to you, not to take up too much time, but I'll just read that piece of the response. I said, regarding the decision on whether or not to renew for next year, we would like to make that decision in the context of increasing the utilization of the fairgrounds for a variety of recreational uses that include but are not limited to glamping. This is about testing the waters to see whether there are viable options out there to further enhance the fairgrounds' impact on the community. The county will be issuing a request for proposals to do this, and we very much hope that you will participate in that process. We will keep you informed as to the timeline and other requirements of this RFP process so you have a fair opportunity to compete. Let me also say that Warren County is not looking to prejudge the outcome of this process. We simply want to get a fresh look at what the realistic opportunities might be for the fairgrounds in 2021, and we will keep an open mind to what your organization and any other interested parties have in mind. So I did want to report back on that issue. And finally, the deficit reduction program that we've been talking about for several months, we initially had it on for the Finance Committee due to some issues that were out of our control. We didn't have enough time to get it to the committee with meaningful time to review it and digest what's in it. So we decided to hold it off. We're going to bring it to finance this coming meeting. I am going to do one last review this afternoon with Tammy, and my intention is to get it out to the full board this afternoon. You can take a look at all the line items in it. We started working on this back in April. All the departments participated. There are reductions on here for 29 county departments. A lot of this savings that we've realized is due to the hiring freeze and also due to activities that were ceased because of the pandemic, or activities that were postponed, or activities that we were able to reconfigure and provide in a different way. For instance, Meals on Wheels, rather than do 5-day deliveries, we went to 3-day deliveries. So there were efficiencies like that. That's all reflected in these numbers, and it's rather technical. So if you want to drill down and get anything specific on these, just give me a call, and I can go through them with you. The full amount of this program is approximately $4 million. What we're going to ask finance to do is to transfer those appropriations out of the codes and put them in a special contingency account. And the idea is that we won't touch that contingency account. So at the end of the year, when we close the books on 2019, that expense authority will be there, but we will not have spent that $4 million. So it endures to the benefit of the fund balance, which is going to be lacking on revenue, as the treasurer mentioned earlier today. So it's our hope that the combined result of all of this stuff gets us through the economic turmoil that we've had this year. A couple of the major pieces that are in here, I'll tell you first of all what's not in here. We didn't go after the aquatic invasive species program. We didn't go after the various contracts that we have for parks in Glens Falls and a number of other municipalities. If the state passes their financial problems onto the county doesn't do that to the localities. That was the theory in not going after any of those general fund contracts. The Board of Elections saved about $35,000 because of the April primary being delayed. We had about $150,000 in insurance that was a result of doing the RFP last year for property and casualty insurance. The 4-H camp didn't happen. That saved $25,000. This is a significant piece. $367,500 is in a resolution today that represents the spending plan being suspended for 2020 for OCTAX. The cancellations of various events that are funded by OpTax also resulted in about $200,000 of savings in the OpTax fund. And additionally, we had savings programs provided by the Convention and Visitor Bureau and by the Civic Center. Those totaled out for this year to $162,500. The county attorney's office will save $40,000 in legal and transcript fees. We have significant vacancy savings at the CHOP for public health, significant vacancy savings in DPW, most notably the engineering unit. They've been down to bare bones all year. We also did not immediately replace Jeff Waddell, who does great work on all of our buildings. So we will need to reignite those processes sometime soon. We have significant vacancy savings in DSS, $250,000 all funds, which works out to less county impact, but it's still significant savings. What else? I mentioned the meal deliveries. I mentioned we deferred $100,000 of heavy equipment purchases for DPW. We, at the Sheriff's Department, we delayed the exterior LED lighting project. That was $35,000. Correction officer vacancies, I forgot to mention, that was another piece that we saved due to the hiring freeze. On Medicaid, when the state, the federal government, I should say, made the Medicaid savings apply down to the counties as well as the state. Initially, there was some thought that the state was going to take all of the savings. The federal government, Senator Schumer, led an effort to make sure that the counties got their portion of that savings too. For us this year, that amounts to $700,000. Now, on top of that, we are including in this deficit reduction program portions of the appropriation for PINS diversions, as well as specialized OCFS training schools, which are part of the juvenile justice system. We believe that we will have some savings in these accounts, perhaps not all, but the point is, in DSS, by virtue of really crunching our operation, we saved $250,000. On top of it, the state hit us for another approximately $900,000 by reducing state aid and also by changing the rules on reimbursements for certain programs where we're essentially having to reimburse providers for services that they never provided. The state made the decision to keep all the providers whole on our dime. The commissioner is going to discuss that at the Human Services Committee next week and give you all the details on that. So in addition to the economic hit on the county, we had another almost $1 million hit from various actions from the state that affected DSS. So between the $700,000 in Medicaid and the reductions we put in for PINS diversions and the other juvenile justice piece, the hope is to recoup at $900,000. In the tourism department, we by reducing travel guide expenses, we saved approximately $40,000. Everybody knows we reduced the ad buy by $500,000, and we also cut $163,500 out of the tourism department budget on working pictures, social media influencers, photography, and web development. So what does that come out to? Overall, it's about a $700,000 cut to the tourism department budget, which is twice the amount that we got out of the spending plan and about 3 times the amount that came out of these special events. It was a significant effort by the tourism department, and I want to thank Joanne and Lisa and that department for making sacrifices this year and still managing to shepherd us through to having a good summer. So they did a great job. I think I've gone on long enough. The final 2 pieces are we are proposing, this will have to be done by separate resolution. We're proposing to liquidate the fund balance assignment for project assessments that we put into this year's budget. And we're also proposing to liquidate the fund balance assignment for SUNY Adirondack operations. Those are both $150,000. It'll put $300,000 to the impact that we're going to have from the coronavirus this year. It's unfortunate that we have to do that because we had a real purpose in mind for those monies, but the situation has changed and we will propose that at finance. In addition to that, what is not included in this program, but is the result of the work of the treasurer's office, is $256,000 in savings on debt service as a result of refinancing bonds. So the sum total of all of that, I think that we will weather the storm pretty well this year. But again, that's apart from what happens with the state aid. On top of all of this, we could have a $3.5 million state aid hit. And more troublingly, one that continues multi-year. We can't sustain that. And that's my report.
Thank you.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, Supervisor Dickinson.
Thank you. Ryan, it's a great report. You've done a great job there. I know this was a long time ago, but when you talked about the cell service, I've always had really good cell service, and I can tell you, my cell service suffered from the increase in use this summer drastically. And I hope that they're going to use that information they gathered to crank up our cell service here and provide us with more better service. That increase didn't help at all. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the report by the county attorney.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So first I want to talk about Resolution 326, which is authorizing an agreement with Queensbury School District for a resource officer. Currently, the amount reimbursable to the county in the resolution is $67,000. After speaking with the sheriff, the amount actually needs to be $87,000. So Queensbury is going to pay the county $87,000. So at the appropriate time, if the board so chooses, I would ask for an amendment to that resolution. Amanda is going to change by clerk's correction the bid opening date for resolutions 343 through 346, which is awarding bids for certain contracts for the court expansion. The bid opening has been removed to Thursday, September 24th at 3 p.m. As the bid opening for these contracts has been moved and it is referenced in the resolution, that will also have to be changed. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have this reading of resolutions, or reading of communications.
We have the Warren County Probation Department reports of criminal and family workloads for the month of July 2020. Albany Medical Center 2019 annual report. Washington County Resolution number 198 of 2020 to approve the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board 2021 budget. And Washington County Resolution number 199 of 2020 to adopt Adirondack Community College budget. We have several payments from the Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corp. They're the 2019 regular benefit distribution payment number 3 in the amount of $2,101. And then the February through June 2020 surcharge payment number 5 in the amount of $656. Number 6 in the amount of $656. Number 7 in the amount of $656. Number 8 in the amount of $659. And the July 2020 surcharge payment in the amount of $3,597.
Next, we have reading of resolutions.
Resolution numbers 306 through 362, as well as the 2 certificates of appointment, were distributed to the members of the Board of Supervisors and posted to the county website on September 11th. None of these resolutions were amended after mailing. There is one floor resolution in your folders to be addressed that's labeled as floor resolution number 1. This was distributed to the members of the Board of Supervisors on September 15th, which met the deadline specified in the rules of the board. In order to entertain this item, a motion and a simple majority vote is needed to bring that to the floor.
Okay. Motion by Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Merlino to bring floor resolution number 1 to the floor. I'll call the question on bringing it to the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, while we're on it, discussion. Supervisor Siebert was.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I read about this when everyone else got that in their packets or by email from Amanda this week. I tried to reach out just to get some more information about it. And this morning I spoke with Kevin Hagos, and I don't know if maybe perhaps he can answer some of these questions. And I'll admit I am I am not an expert negotiator by any stretch of the imagination, but $1,000 for an extension of this contract, taking, I think it's maybe 5, 6, 7 miles, I'm not sure, through Revolution Rail. While I support the idea and their business, I would think that we as a county might want to advocate for a little bit more than $1,000. I'm not being critical at all about that negotiation. I'm just simply asking, is there a possibility? If this is in front of us, it hasn't gone to committee. I do understand the nature of wanting to have this done this meeting so it doesn't delay them the opportunity to be able to take our tourists through our beautiful Adirondacks as the colors turn. But I do think it might be worth seeing if we could negotiate or ask for a little bit more than $1,000, which I think is a fair question to ask.
Supervisor Bramer.
Could we have Superintendent Hayes give us an update? Because I thought that we had discussed this, but maybe this is an additional extension to the mileage that they're using or something. I can't remember.
Mr. Hayes.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Revolution Rail had initiated a contract with the county for the use of 3 different sections on our track. One of them was up in North Creek, just down to the repair station. The next one was from Stony Creek Ranch to the therming station, and the last one was the southern portion of the track. When the pandemic hit, they kind of stepped back a little bit and said they only wanted to do the portion which was in North Creek down to Reparius. They since had reached out to Supervisor Garrity and Romino, looking to use the southern portion of the track down in Hadley, Lake Luzerne area for the fall foliage. We had a discussion the other day concerning, or if there was any concerns in that area. I don't have any concerns in that area. The track is clear in that area. The original contract for the use of the entire track this year was supposed to be for $35,000. They had since reduced it for the portion that they were going to use in North Creek, or we had reduced it to $20,000. So basically right now they're paying $20,000 for 4 buildings in North Creek, as well as probably about 8 miles for the track. This section they want to use down in Hadley, Lake Luzerne area is about 4.8 miles of track. And the offer was made for $1,000. And that's the gist of it. We can go back and ask for more. I'd be more than willing to do that. If someone has a number, I mean, I can give you again, ballpark figure, 20,000 for this year, and that's 7 miles of track, 7 or 8 miles of track, and 4 buildings.
Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. Kevin, I've got a couple of comments, but this is just for this year, correct?
Just for this year.
And I'm sorry, I didn't speak in the microphone, but the question was, is it just for this year? And the answer was yes. My sense is this is a business that's expanding, trying to start something new. I think if we can entice them to do that this year by having a moderate fee, I think we should do that, prove it out for them so we can have better discussions on negotiations next year. It's important to be able to expand. If you think about Revolution Rail and riding the tracks, how many times you're going to do that in your lifetime? You're probably going to do just once or twice, maybe that primary section that they have now. And to expand that to a section will bring back people who have done it once already to try a different section of the rails. And I'm just in favor of doing whatever we can to support our businesses. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Garrity.
Yes, I guess I'm the guilty party here. I met with them and somewhat what Mike just said, I thought that if we kept it at a minimum amount for a few runs in October, because I doubt that they'll go past October, it would certainly open up the southern portion of our tracks to more business next year. And the other thing we also talked about with them was the section from Stony Creek to 1,000 acres, because 1,000 acres is under new management. So I thought by allowing people to see this in this southern part of the county and the southern part of our tracks, because they're only going to go down to Anton Mountain, it would be beneficial for the business. It would be beneficial for the county for this year. So not thinking about dividing the number of miles of tracks that we're paying now, I just threw out a number, maybe $1,000 more. This ends at the end of this season. Next year, you negotiate a new contract, or I think that's how you do it, with Revolution Rail. So whatever you want to do, I'm okay with. But I looked at it and say, geez, we get exposure to a part of the track that just sits idle now. So that was my thoughts behind it. So I'm the guilty party that threw out $1,000, not Mr. Hajos or anybody else there.
Mr. Hajos.
I just wanted to add, we still have in the contract, it was reduced for this year. I believe going into next year, they still want to use the 3 sections that they were looking to use this year, which would include that southern portion. Originally, before everything got changed, it was $30,000 for this year, $35,000 for next year, and I think the following year was $40,000. So there's if we renew it, agree with the terms for next year, I think it's a $35,000 revenue for the county.
Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin, wicked fair price. I know they're doing a phenomenal business. It was a little slow from the start, and we gave them a break. And it really is a catch-22. So, I like to say I think that was awfully fair. We're really just talking for a month and opening it up. I think this will open it up for more. But from the articles that I have read and the feedback that I have gotten from that, I mean, they're full. And you go on your reservations days, and this is and there's no rain check. You miss it, you miss it. And they're booked in this pandemic. I guess it really the latter part, since once they were able to open up, they really had a good year. So I think we've agreed to the $1,000 at this point. I would say leave it at that, and next year maybe we can try to let them and see how the numbers come in and negotiate a little stronger contract, because I really think it's a phenomenal opportunity for them to be up here, and our tracks are sitting idle anyway. Thank you.
Supervisor Merlino.
I just wanted to say, they're only going to do it for, hopefully 4 weekends. It's only weekends, not the full time. They got a little bit of more expense now to throw out advertising to get the people to the area. And, I think it's a good move. And next year we could check it out, see how they did. They'll give us a count, and we can move from there. Like I said, they got a little more expense now for advertising, moving the equipment down. They did buy extra bikes for next year, which they're going to try to use this year. So, they're working at it. We'll have the whole track taken care of, I think, next year. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a concern about the $1,000. I think that this is truly an opportunity to go back to them and try to negotiate a better deal. I think set the precedence by coming in with a low ball number of $1,000, and I'd like to see us sit down at the table with them and see if we can work out a better deal for the county in respect.
Okay, Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I can speak to this. I support this resolution, and I support it at $1,000. The people who ride RevRail come to town, they're spending quite a bit to go on this excursion. They stop in our stores, they patronize our restaurants, and they drop quite a few more bucks than just on their ride. This is economic development outside of the areas of the county that we typically focus on. I think allowing them to get in there and work out the bugs in this year in particular is important. We want them to feel welcome And I feel like taking it back to the table is an unnecessary delay since their season is only another month and a half. And I wholeheartedly support this at $1,000.
Thank you. Supervisor Conover.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support this resolution. I like the idea of having a company that's willing to prospect on an activity like this. But I'm going to return to a point that I've made in the previous contract negotiations. Unless and until we have audited statements from this company, exactly as we do at the airport, we're not going to be in a position to properly represent the public interest relative to this corridor and this line. So it doesn't necessarily have to happen today, but going forward, I strongly recommend that at some point we incorporate audited statements into their annual filings so we know exactly what we're dealing with at whatever section of the line. And unless and until we have that, we're going to be flying blind. So, but I do support the resolution for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with Supervisor Hogan, what she said, and Supervisor Conover's idea is a good one as well. Thank you.
Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Conover, you make an excellent point. When we negotiated with the airport just a little over a year ago, it was vital to have all the information, all the numbers when Mr. McDevitt, myself, and I believe it was Mr. Sokol at that time, negotiated the what I think was a favorable contract for the county and fair for Mr. Skimmerhorn. But without that information, we couldn't have got, we never would have received a tripling of our sales tax, of our gasoline tax revenue. We went from 7 cents to 21 cents. So that information is vital, Mr. Conover. You're correct. And hopefully we can see that very soon so that we can make even a better educated negotiating position. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say quickly, I'm supporting it. I support this resolution. I'm always one to try to negotiate for more money for the county's properties. In this situation, though, I think it's, not a very long amount of time, only a few weekends. This is an unprecedented time for our businesses, and to be able to support them in this way, I think is important. And considering that there have been other events that we have paid thousands of dollars to them for canceled events. I know those are different pots of money, but I think that we need to support this business entity in their pursuit of further recreational opportunities on the line. And it is bringing other sales tax dollars like Supervisor Hogan mentioned. But I do fully support the auditing, and I wonder if that is already in our contract. Because we have talked about that before, and if it's not, we should amend the contract so that we can get those audited financials. Thank you.
I'm not sure about that. Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just end this conversation on this note. Of course, we're going to have this type of discussion when things come up last minute, whether there's good or bad reasons for those. However, we keep talking about just a couple of runs. I would like to read to you from their website, which is readily available to all of us, that while their South Run isn't open yet, they anticipate offering trips daily at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m., 3 p.m., and 5 p.m. And the average cost is $180 for a quad to run on that. So even if they only have one person in each one of those spots, they are looking at a revenue of about $900 a day. We are sitting here talking about $1,000. The time that we've invested into this and our paid staff here already, lawyers looking at negotiations and contracts, already exceed that. So I'm just asking for some type of a compromise. If we look at an additional 4.5 miles, maybe perhaps that's $4,500. I don't think that's unfair given the revenue potential. And of course, I support our types of businesses that are going to continue to bring in not only that type of educational and awareness efforts of our beautiful county, but I also think that as we sit in budget discussions and I watch our budget officer very carefully go over a supply line, a miscellaneous cost, we cut maybe $200 out of one budget because it didn't look like they spent as much in supplies. but we have an opportunity to create just a little bit more revenue on something that clearly isn't just a couple times before the end of October. I just submit that perhaps we have an opportunity here that I can't believe they'd say no to, just given the few numbers we talked about. But I too recall that discussion with Supervisor Conover at the beginning of the year where we were going to ask for ridership information. And, you know, I again don't know if that's on file or been reviewed, but I hope they take point and attention to this discussion as they move into next year looking for a contract.
Thank you. Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, other resolutions yet?
Are there what?
Can we talk about other resolutions?
Yeah, in a minute. Supervisor Simpson.
I think, you know, from my perspective, it's not that it's a bad business or it's not something that we can all support, but I think what it comes down to is the accountability to the people who actually own the line, you know, which is our taxpayers, and are we doing the right, you know, developing the right contract, the right benefit, you know, to all of the towns that are represented and to the constituents that own it, the taxpayers. And so I can see, you know, it sounds great. We've been in many contracts where it sounded great and we really want to start something. And then, you know, what about the other guy that, hey, I want to invest in that. Maybe I want to rent that section of the line. And they're closed out because we're in a really tight deal with somebody that we've seen grow. And, you know, there's just got to be a balance there with all those variables, and be able to be accountable for it as representatives of the people who own it.
Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to make a point of clarification. The south run that Supervisor Sieber referred to is in North Creek. They're not yet advertising anything in Lake Luzerne.
Why isn't that one open yet?
I'm sorry, the south run is open.
Not according to their website.
The one I'm looking at shows booking for that, so I don't know.
Under daily schedule, it states that. Northbridge is open, offering runs at 10, 12, 2, 4, and 8. All I'm saying is we can consider it. That's all.
Supervisor Conover and Supervisor Bramer.
Yeah, listen, I don't think trying to extract any $1,000 more or whatever from this company is really at question, at least not in my mind. I can remember exactly when this was brought up under the contract negotiations. And you know what happens in the to and the fro of deliberating these kinds of things, people get, and some things get lost. And, but I suspected even then that we would find ourselves at a point in time when we really need to have really good information relative to the activity that's going on our line, on the taxpayer line, and so that we can make good decisions going forward. So I don't believe that requiring audited statements was included in the motion that originally approved their use of this line. And I'm not exactly sure how we, since it's an annual contract, we can ask to be included at any time, I suppose. But I strongly recommend that, or we're going to be sitting right back here next year having this same discussion about this, not only the Luzerne line, but the North line, and what is a correct fair share relative to this. So my recommendation is to really focus on that as opposed to, because we all hope it is successful. I mean, the company doesn't know if it's going to be successful. They're going to move all that equipment. They're going to move down to Luzerne. They're going to launch this activity. They're going to invest a lot of money, right? They're hoping to be successful, but they don't know, and we don't know, do we? So they have the history up north that they have, but they don't have the history down south. And I'd like nothing better than to see a very successful southern part of this line. And so I support this resolution, and I don't know that we should really at this stage be focused on $1,000 or $2,000 more. I think what we really want to see is successful business activity that's bringing people to Luzerne, that's bringing people to the southern end of the county, or the whole county, the whole region, really. And I think that's where we should be focused. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you so much,
Yes, Chairman.
Chairman. I am concerned about the fact that we don't have data, and I would like to make a motion to amend this resolution to include that they will provide us annual ridership data and audited financials.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the floor resolution 1 of 2020 for today, which is now 363, to include the accommodation for auditing and state ridership, et cetera. And seconded by Supervisor Seaver. Any discussion on the amendment?
Is this for?
This is for the floor resolution.
It's not going into the subsequent years. It's for this. What if they do not have audited statements and it's going to take them two weeks or 3 weeks to get them? The season's over.
Well,
I thought it was going forward, but
That's my thought, is that going forward at the end of this business year, whatever their fiscal year is, they'll have their financials audited and they'll provide that to us. Especially, yeah. Oh, sorry, Brian.
No, just a question. What we're asking for is, so they have a contract right now to operate that does not involve audited financials. And what we're asking for is if we want to add this southern line at the $1,000, and we would also ask them to include audited financials in the current contract. So it's a have it this way, write it that way.
Where they don't get this other line. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
yes, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but there's other ways to do this besides audited financials. You could also do a per ridership fee, and that might be easier to keep track of. We need to keep open mind in terms of how we go through this because the audits are going to be pretty expensive. So let's just let them have it for this season and talk about the next contract as that comes up next week. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, I'll try a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
1, 2. Mr. Liggett and Ms. Hogan are both opposed. Anyone else opposed? Okay. You're opposed?
No, I'm not opposed. This is finished, right?
Yes, we're done with the.
I just want to make one more comment.
Okay.
I didn't say this before because I didn't want to change it, but they're going to offer a ride to every one of the supervisors a couple of days before they start. And we'll get you out a time and a date. We might have a little luncheon after that. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, discussion on resolutions. Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I hope you don't regret this, but I know the rules of the board, if something is tabled, the discussion ends. So I'd like to talk about 321. 321 is a resolution that was discussed in occupancy tax. I'm not on that committee, probably by design, but it was a means to reserve some funds for upcoming years and take some money away from the towns, supplemental money to the towns. And having this pulled today and not voted on today, I believe is a disservice to those supervisors who participated in the discussion, as well as to our citizens, because this is Warren County money, it's not town money. And all the other departments in this county are looking to save money, cut costs, but we don't want to do it for the unaudited and unreviewed funds that go to the towns. So I've been on this platform before talking about occupancy tax. 25% of all the proceeds go to the towns. The majority of that goes to the town of Bolton, the town of Lake George, the village of Lake George, and the town of Queensbury, to the tune of $1 million a year. To take a few $1,000s away from this year, to have these towns also have their share of gain, so to speak, of not having these funds is, I think, the right thing to do. And again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that this will probably be tabled and we won't discuss it, but I believe that everyone needs to know that this is a cookie jar fund, as described by one of the supervisors on this board and on that committee. And we need to get a better handle on where these funds are going, the return on investment for these funds, and how we're going to grow our economy, specifically our tourism economy, beyond just the summer, the fall, the winter, the spring. So we need to get a better handle on this money, and I can go on for hours. But I will stop there.
You did sneak one in on me right there. Supervisor Dickinson did make a request during committee reports. Mr. Dickinson.
I hesitate to comment on Mike's diatribe. We're the primary tourism town in the whole county. We generate 50% of the OCTAX. We fund 20 events with that combined money that the mayor and I get. It's a lot of events, and some of them are long-term. We have time to discuss this. We got another meeting before the year is over. I would like a chance to see the numbers after next Friday and see where we are monetarily. And for that reason, I make a motion to table it until next month.
We do have a motion to table 321. Do we have a second?
I'll second, John Stroud.
Seconded by Supervisor Stroud.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I have an objection to the consideration of this question, and I have it based on the fact that this is a common violation of a fair procedure. That in fact, what this motion to table does, it would not be in order because it would permit debate to be suppressed by a majority vote. And to do that, you can only do that by a 2/3 vote. Furthermore, to lay a motion on the table, or as stated, tabling this motion, refers to temporarily setting aside a pending motion or a series of pending motions to take care of something else deemed urgent. This is less about the business being discussed and more about the assembly needing to handle something immediately.
Okay. So.
I request a vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The motion was properly made. The person that made the motion had the floor. The motion was properly seconded. The second doesn't have to be recognized by the chairman. The motion to table it has been properly made, and if approved by a majority of the board, the issue that that's been brought up here is not an issue, because it's not a question that it won't be voted on. It's a question of when, and so it's not as stated. It's a proper motion, a proper table, and all discussion should end per Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you.
I'll give you one more shot at it, Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that this decision can be made solely by the chairman of the board on whether or not the point of order is permissible or not. That either gets made by the chair or by a majority vote of the board, which of course we could ask for a vote to determine whether or not the point of order is actually applicable or not. But again, I submit to you that the motion to table is not to limit debate. That is not the purpose of a tabling or a lay on the table. So we, as previously stated, spent a lot of time on this topic. I'm just saying that the motion to table is on board.
I want one more shot. I mean, I've got Robert's Rules right in front of me. I can read it to you if you want, but basically what it says, it's carried by a simple majority. It's the person making the motion has to have the floor, which Mr. Dickinson does. The second was made by Mr. Stroud. It's something that's going to be dealt with at a future date. The objection is just groundless, and all discussion should end on the motion to table. Thank you.
Yep. The chair rules that the motion was in order, and we'll ask the clerk to conduct a roll call on the table.
This is on the motion to table resolution 321. Mr. Leggett?
Aye.
Mr. Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt,
No.
Ms. Bramer,
No.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
No.
Mr. Simpson,
This is the tape, right? Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
No.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
No.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Beatty,
No.
Ms. Shepler,
No.
Mr. Garrity,
No.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
No.
Okay, the motion fails. There were only 353 votes in favor.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Kyle.
just to continue discussion on the resolution. You know, the budget officer came to committee and said that we had this dire situation in Octax. And I said at that time, Bolton, we're all prepared to do our fair share. Of course we are. Of course we are. But I took the time to look at the numbers and try to understand the issue that was being made. Now, the projection that was used was $3 million in Octax. And if it's $3 million is going to be the revenue for this year, then of course we need to take dramatic action. But suppose it's not $3 million. Now, the loss of revenue between January and June of this year, and everyone should pay attention, was $350,000 in round numbers. I mean, the Sagamore was closed. And then when it opened in May, and not just the Sagamore, when it opened in May, it was only opened at a half occupancy. So effectively what the scenario is stating is that between July 1 and the end of the year, we're going to lose another $1.7 million. And now I don't need to argue that point because we're going to know in a few weeks. So why the rush to push this through when we could tear up, and let's not forget, we have contracts with these municipalities. We're effectively tearing up those contracts. We're voiding those contracts. I've never heard of such a thing. Now, if you waited a month or two, we would know what our situation is. And perhaps we might have to reduce the contracts with the towns. 10%, 20%, no percent, 0.5%, 50%. We just don't know. But what's going to happen here is I'm telling you, if the revenue is there, I'm reintroducing the ordinance. I'm at least reintroducing it for Bolton. Now, if there are towns out there that wish to be excluded from this additional money, we can exclude them. They can provide that information to the county administrator and we will exclude them. I mean, this is and just one other thing. When this was adopted, which, oh, by the way, was adopted by unanimous vote of the board, this was done with a package which included Glens Falls. And at that time, we didn't turn our back on Glens Falls. We voted for Cool Arena. We voted for that allocation of the money. And I find it curious that at this moment, so many years later, that some part of Glens Falls, maybe not all, but some part of Glens Falls chooses to turn its back on the towns. That's all I have to say on the matter. But you can expect that this will get reintroduced. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bramer. Sorry.
That's okay, Chairman. Thank you. I know Supervisor Conover likes to just talk without being called upon. I want to disagree with Supervisor Wild in his insinuation that the towns are not doing a good job keeping track of this money. That is not why I am supporting this resolution. I'm supporting it because we are in a dire financial situation, unprecedented time. And I would like to see us pass this resolution, and it doesn't mean we are going to leave the towns behind forever and ever. We can always come forward with a new package if data turns out later on in the year that we're doing okay. At this time, I think it's appropriate to move forward with this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, and I think that ends discussion on 321. Any other resolutions that anyone would like to discuss? Any roll calls?
You got
Andrea.
Supervisor Hogan, Tom.
Andrea,
Thank you. I'll wait for the chairman to recognize me.
Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we truly done with discussion on 321?
I believe we are.
I
It was discussed before it was tabled, then it was tabled and discussed a little more and discussed afterwards. So I think it's been discussed.
so we're not offering every supervisor the opportunity to weigh in equally here.
May I have a point of order once again?
Sure.
I say that a little hesitantly, Mr. Chairman, and while Supervisor Hogan and I may disagree on that discussion regarding tabling, that was all that discussion was about. My understanding that to limit discussion or debate, that there would be a vote on it if there are still people that would like to be heard. And again, this just brings up the issue of Robert's rules and wanting a training, which we talk about every month, which we haven't had and we all disagree on, but I don't believe you can limit debate.
Well, as chairman, I do believe I can. So I did. And as far as I'm concerned, it's over. If the board wants to vote to allow more debate, then that's the board's prerogative.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay.
I will second.
Seconded by Supervisor Hogan or
Bramer.
Bramer.
To allow debate.
Okay.
This resolution.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really have one simple question. I very much have enjoyed the fiery rhetoric when talking about New York State withholding payments to the county. So my question is this. I support Supervisor Dickinson in tabling this resolution because I do think that it needs more consideration and we need more financial data. But to pass it through right now, how is this any different than New York State withholding funds from us? It's smaller amounts, it's different entities, but aren't we doing exactly the same thing to the towns that we're accusing the state of doing to us?
Because the state doesn't give us a seat at the table and the ability to debate it, they just do it.
Well, I question our ability to debate it even.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Liggett. No, one at a time.
Yeah.
Supervisor Liggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This money that we're looking at setting aside by Resolution 321, for clarification for everybody, this is a supplemental distribution, and that usually gets paid out when? I need a point of clarification on that.
When the funds are available.
You can ask the treasurer or the county attorney. One of them should know.
Is this usually the October disbursement or later?
Yeah, I think it's early,
It's the May.
like the first quarter.
It's usually in the first quarter. We do the 30% or the $30,000 is in the fall. That's kind of an advance. And then in the spring is the supplemental.
So then, Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up with that, it seems like we do have time to discuss how much will be in the occupancy tax fund here in several months' time to make a more rational decision on what to cut. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Conover.
Yeah, and that, Mr. Leggett, as usual, you just hit the nail right on the head. So what would be the harm? What would have been the harm to wait 30 or 60 days? We can tear up our contract with Chester at any time. So why are we, or Ms. Hogan, we can tear up our contract with Johnsburg at any time. Mr. Stroud, apparently we can tear up our contract with Queensberry at any time. So why do we have to tear it up today? Why can't we tear it up a month from today? Why can't we tear it up 2 months from today when we have good information and we know what we're talking about? And there isn't a supervisor in this room that will not support that if the revenue comes in at $3 million? Is there a supervisor in the room that would not support deleting those contracts if the revenue comes in at $3 million? I don't hear a voice. I don't hear a voice. So why today? Mr. Dickinson's resolution was well thought out. It was fair, and it went to the point of it aiding us in our decision-making going forward. But apparently there are those that aren't interested in that. They're not interested in the data. They're not interested in any of that. What they're interested in is tearing up the contracts. But I'm here to tell you, that supplement's going to get reintroduced. And I would hope that our friends from Glens Falls, who we supported with Cool Arena, and who we supported paying even with Cool Arena closed with no activities at Cool Arena, will not turn their back on the towns. We didn't turn our back on you when the chips were down. Don't you turn your back on us. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. I've been told recently that this is the third rail. I probably shouldn't touch it, but I don't learn my lessons very well. But just one comment. This is an austerity budget time. Our administrator talked about that. Secondly, Occupancy is for events and for promotion. We've had many events that have canceled this year that we probably shouldn't have paid for. So my sense is take the hit now, think about it again next year, but we haven't paid for all those events this year. Thank you.
Supervisor Garrity?
Okay. Let me set the record straight. This was brought to me by the Oxy tax people that we weren't having enough money. We have not paid our towns. We have not paid our towns this year for this extra money that they haven't even got their 25%. So I was asked if I would put this forward in the Oxy tax committee and explain to them, we don't have money to make the payments now. We paid all the small communities their amount of money. We didn't pay the big communities. They each got $50,000. Nobody is going to be left destitute by cutting $400,000 in payments this year. The committee voted. I explained it. I have all the reports from 2019 right here. If anybody would like to see, there are communities that have $253,000 worth of Oxy tax sitting in the coffers now. There are other communities that have nothing. They're all here. So it's not about that, Ron. And you made it personal last time, so I'm going to make it personal. It's not about that. It's about doing what's right this time. If the funds rebound in 2021, which I didn't put in the 2021 tourism budget, I'm not opposed to revisiting it. But everybody in this room is taking a hit. Every community is taking a hit. We voted to do it in committee. We brought it to the full board. The full board voted now not to do it. If you don't like it, bring it up in another date. But I'm telling you right now, I was asked to do that at committee, and I did what I was asked to do. And I have not put it in the 2021 budget plan, and I will not put it in the 2021 budget plan. I'm not going to budget for money we're not going to get. And if you want to be budget officer, ask Mr. Thomas to become budget officer, and you can do whatever you want with it. But I'm tired of hearing this. I was asked to do it. I did my job. The committee saw it the way I presented it. People want to change it, change it. It didn't pass here once. If you want to bring it up again, knock yourself out.
I didn't, Mr. Chairman, I want to respond to that. I did not personalize that popularity. And Kevin, if you're projecting on $3 billion, on $3 million, what happens if it's?
There you go. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you. I'm a little dismayed at how Mr. Conover is trying to just take over the whole meeting, and now he thinks he's chairman again. Newsflash at you, Mr. Thomas, it's the chairman, and I appreciate you muting Mr. Conover. You know, making threats to other supervisors, that should be beneath you. I know a few supervisors on this board now think threatening residents or threatening other supervisors is the way to go. I don't. I think we work together. Mr. Garrity was given an assignment, and he did an excellent job. He did what he should have done as chairman of the budget committee. The committee passed the resolution, and we should vote on it today. And Mr. Conover, you can do your, as Mr. Dickinson says, diatribe all you want. It's not going to change the basic facts. So let's vote on it and let's see where it rolls. And we can always visit it down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity for debate. I think debate is in fact healthy. I just want to remind this board, and I'm sure it's on all of your minds, that in January, we had multiple occupancy tax meetings where we debated putting the 2019 funds into the 2020 budget because it wasn't done in 2019. And at that meeting, Dennis Dickinson said, this year we would be talking about changing things. This year we would look at the changes, we would debate them, we would talk about them, and that process has started. I think that the budget officer didn't have a fun task in front of him, but he had a hard task, and that certainly brings grief with it as well. I am in support of the resolution as it's in front of us today, and I think that we've spent significant time on it at committee. And I, for one, am glad we're finally talking about some issues that obviously feel very personal to many communities. But ask our hoteliers, the ones that are raising the money, I bet it feels very personal to them too.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Conover.
I wasn't personalizing anything. At committee, it was stated that if the revenue was there, that we could revisit this issue. What I'm saying is we won't know that for another month or so. Now some of us that have economic tourism communities feel that the summer's gone along pretty well. We just had a report that said that perhaps it's ahead of last year. I don't know. And I don't think we need to debate that point. The point today was that we'll know more in a month. That was the point of the resolution. Now, as far as cash flow is different than budgeted amounts. We only collect between January and June of each year. It's like sales tax. We only collect $800,000 or $850,000 in OC tax. We don't get the primary amount in, just like sales tax, until the latter part of the year. That was the point that I was making. I was bringing information to the board about how the program works, where it's budgeted. That was the point that I was making, Kevin. If instead of collecting $5 million this year, we collect $4 million this year, the unobligated balance is going to be up to $1.3 million plus Mike's $1 million. And if that's the case, if what you're telling me is, okay, Ron, introduce a resolution, we'll reinstate the funding, I guess I'm good with that. It seems like a longhand way of doing it, but if that's the way we have to do it, then that's the way we have to do it. The motion was looking to shortcut that. It was saying, let's get the information first, then we can make the decision. But if we're going to do it longhand, we'll do it longhand. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Supervisor Dickinson.
I hesitate to say anything.
You got all day.
I have to make one point. The OC tax isn't the county's money. It's the money that the businesses have collected, and it's funneled through the county. So don't start thinking it's the county money any more than when you send it to town, it's the town's money. It's not. Those business people collected that money to be spent on advertising and promotion. So don't think it's your money. And the cookie jar thing was a joke. Like, apparently it went right over your head. And I realized it's something, the attitude's there, but that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on 321? Okay, would the board like to close the discussion on 321? Should we vote on that? Okay, discussion on 321 is over. Any other resolutions? Yes,
Oh, I better go with this one first. On 350, I see the treasurer is still here. This is the one about writing off amounts receivable from state and federal related to 4 different projects. Is there anything further that we can do to get this money to us versus cost us, the 97,000? Okay, that's that one. On resolution 358, I see that we are taking this money, and you know, I'd really love it if Sagamore would help us with some of this, but I made that case at the committee meeting and didn't seem to go anywhere. As far as taking the money out of the general fund, don't we have some money in a capital reserve fund for doing planning of projects like this that we could use that as our source of funding rather than the general fund? Or I thought I heard you say something about that you were wiping that out, or, but what about money for 2020? Isn't there any money in that fund for 2020 for planning of projects?
That 150,000, I think, represents what we put in last year plus this year, if memory serves. That the 150 is the full balance.
And you're saying that's already been appropriated somewhere else?
No, we're going to propose that be put into a deficit reduction program and revert back to fund balance.
So it's in
I
essence,
mean, I guess
it's in essence the same thing.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Discussion on any other resolutions? Any roll calls? Oh, okay. Sorry, it's hard for this guy to see that screen up there. Andrea?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just get clarification on floor resolution 1? What is it now?
It's resolution 363.
And how does it read exactly?
I believe the amendment was to ask or request an accounting and audited statement of their activities, whether it be at the southern end this fall or maybe for the northern end for this summer.
So what do we do if they can't pull together an audited statement for us this year?
Well, my understanding during the discussion was that we would negotiate that, and hopefully they can, but if they can't, that would be negotiable to
So this
account some other way.
So this, just to be clear, this resolution is okay and they're good to go, even if they can't pull together an audited. I'm just concerned with the use of the word audited here.
Yes, because it was our request to add it to the contract. So I guess if they don't agree to add it to the contract, then I guess we're not going to let them go on the rail. I'm not sure.
But my point is that the use of the term audited.
Okay.
So do we, if they can't get an audited statement together for us this year,
I would have to refer that to the county attorney. I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to.
Chairman Thomas.
Chairman, do you want me to answer that, or I just didn't know?
Yes, please.
Okay. So in order to amend the contract this year, we would both have to sign the amendment. So if they don't agree to amend the contract, I actually don't know how we have anything to stand on to make them. I mean, we signed this contract months ago. If they don't want to amend it and they don't want to sign it, at that point, would the county be breaching the contract? I mean, I guess that's my point. So
the point I made earlier, Mr. Chairman, is that exactly what the county attorney said. If they don't want to give us audited financials, then they have the right to continue under the current contract without giving us audited financials. They just won't be able to run on the southern line, which we're proposing today. I think I think that the motion stated, this is why I asked for the clarification, was to add a resolve paragraph to this resolution stating that this particular addition to the contract is also contingent upon them putting in something in the contract about audited financial statements.
Okay, that's where I'm unclear. Are we looking for audited this year or audited going forward?
If they want the amendment to run on the Lake Luzerne line, they have to provide audited financial statements of this year's activities.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Supervisor Dickinson.
My understanding was somebody asked that question when we were discussing this, and they said it would apply to next year, not this year. It was added to this amendment for next year. If they come back, we're going to want to see audited information on their business. It had nothing to do with this year. We have a contract with them. It's $1,000 to get to use the southern portion.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was my understanding that the whole audited thing was for next year. It did not, wasn't to directly affect the $1,000 for this year in the southern end of the line. I would also like to bring up, this is a difficulty with amending resolutions from the floor during committee meeting. It gets confusing. I see that even though there's good intent behind the addition on the amendment to the original resolution, it was untimely and it should have been coming out of committee. It did not need to be done at this point in time. It creates confusion in the whole process. And I'd like all supervisors to take that into account whenever they're proposing to change resolutions from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. So what's the clarification? I guess I'm not clear, so. Or doesn't different opinions.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wild?
If I may, I just think it's too confusing right now. I'd like to make a motion to amend the amendment and just strike it and leave the original resolution. Moving forward, we see if we can figure out how to get a reasonable perspective in terms of what is a valuable or a reasonable rent from this. Instead, we try to negotiate that next year and modify the contract.
I'll second that.
As fast as we can.
Okay, we have a motion to withdraw the amendment to the resolution 363.
I'll second that.
Second by Supervisor Dickinson. And discussion on withdrawing the amendment. Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. Supervisor Leggett, I did make an amendment from the floor and it was a little confusing. I recognize that. However, this is a floor resolution that did not come through committee, so I did not have an opportunity to comment on it previously, nor did we hear anybody else's concerns about wanting more data and information. I would like to see us still collect the ridership data from 2020. That doesn't seem overly burdensome to me. What they've done this year. I get that maybe they can't get us audited financials, but I wasn't even asking for that to be, provided tomorrow. I was talking about providing it for 2020 once they get it back, and that might not be until 2021. You know what I'm saying?
Chairman?
But in the interest of clarity and just maybe looking at this at committee, I will go along with the amendment to undo the amendment. Sorry, Supervisor Stuber. I will definitely advocate for it going forward. I think we need to have this information and the financials.
Attorney Cassini.
Yes, thank you. The ridership report is actually required under this contract as well before the November board meeting. So you will get that information under this contract.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on the removing the amendment from previously? Supervisor Bramer. Or
Supervisor
Seaver, I'm sorry.
Regardless, I've been around for what, 4 or 5 years now. Supervisor Leggett, again, this was a floor resolution. This type of discussion happens when it comes off of the floor, and we owe that to our taxpayers. I can sit here and I can debate how to do an amendment to an amendment on an off-the-floor resolution, and if that's a 2/3 or a majority. But my feeling is that we aren't really going to go by Robert's rules here today. So I'm going to save my breath on that, but if this is in fact what the board desires, you know, I just think we should lead by example. If we're going to ask our department heads to cut money and we're going to increase our opportunities for revenue in multiple places, we should be looking at it here too. At a ridership report, it's not that hard. I'm glad to hear we'll have one in November. I wish we had a little more information before we discussed it today. So I can save you the trouble of your amendment to an amendment and just agree to the change the person who's seconded it off the floor resolution amendment. It's sufficient for you to provide.
Whatever's easier, I'm all for it.
Okay, that's nice, but we have a motion to withdraw the amendment. Any other discussion on that?
Is that a 2/3 vote?
I don't believe so. So if there's no further discussion, I'll call the question on withdrawing the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, Supervisor Sieber, Supervisor Diamond, and I'm not sure who
I believe it's Supervisor Conover.
Supervisor Conover. Wait and see. Okay, so the amendment is withdrawn.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I ask for a roll call on 321? That's the resolution. That's the resolution, I believe, isn't that the resolution to delete the funding from the municipalities?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like a roll call on that. Thank you.
Roll call on 321. Any other roll calls? Any other discussion on resolutions before us today?
Mr. Chairman,
Attorney Kasane.
we still, if the board wants to do it, we would still need an amendment to resolution 326 just to change the amount to $87,000.
Yes.
I'm happy to make that motion to increase revenue on that particular resolution, that amendment. If you provide a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Supervisor Sieber,
I'll second it.
seconded by Supervisor Beatty. Any discussion on amending 326, I believe, to 87,000? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Is there anything else we have to do? Oh, okay. I thought there was some comment about 343 to 46 changing the opening date. Okay, public comment on the resolutions before us.
We have no public comment on resolutions. We do on other issues.
Okay, that'll come with privilege of the floor, public comment. Okay, vote on resolutions.
Resolution 306, making supplemental appropriations. Mr. Leggett,
Aye.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer. Yes. Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Sheckler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 307, amending Warren County budget for 2020 for various departments within Warren County. Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer. Yes. Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 321, amending Resolution 50 of 2020, approving the 2020 occupancy tax spending plan. Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
No.
Mr. Driscoll,
yes,
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
No.
Mr. Dickinson,
No.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
No.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
No.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 335, amending tables of organization for Warren County and salary compensation plan for 2020. Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
yes,
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 342, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the Rehab County Buildings Reserve to the Buildings and Grounds budget for elevator repairs. Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
yes,
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 347, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the insurance reserve to various departmental budgets. Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
yes,
Mrs. Frazier.
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild. Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 351, amending capital project H199 Corinth Road reconstruction to correct funding sources. Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
yes,
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 352, amending capital project H200 Quaker Road Signal Improvement Project to correct funding sources. Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
yes,
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Can I interrupt you for a minute? Would there be any objection by the board from doing resolutions 353 through 360 as one vote?
No objection.
No objection. None.
Okay, the next vote will be on resolutions 353 through 360.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer. Yes. Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Simpson,
Yes.
Ms. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Stroud,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Shepler,
Yes.
Mr. Garrity,
Yes.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's all the roll call. Still collective on the rest.
Yep, we need a vote on the collective. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we have privilege of the floor and public comment.
Hello, we do have a variety of public comments. I'll start with Diane Collins, who asked, is any support being offered to renters in Warren County who cannot be evicted until January 1st, 2021, but will still accrue unaffordable rent due payments? Likewise, is support offered to landlords? I don't know if anyone here can answer that at this point, but maybe that's a question for Mr. Hanchett. I can forward to him. Diane Collins also asked, in terms of the budget issue, was a potential garbage hauler fee decision included?
No.
Okay. Frank Dietrich asks, regarding occupancy tax payouts to the towns, what would the use of those monies be for in 2020?
Sure.
There won't be any other than the 10% or the 25%, however you look at it.
There is also a study, this is also from Mr. Dietrich, there is also a study led by Supervisor Sieber on allocation methods for occupancy tax. With tourism contributing 25% to the county budget and a somewhat uncertain future, should spending decisions be cautiously made with a focus on the return on investment? We also have a comment from Travis Whitehead. I am seeking an apology for the comments made on July 17th by Chairman Thomas and previous and subsequent actions by your county attorney in making false allegations that multiple harassment charges supposedly exist against me. I have since asked the county for an accounting of any and all charges filed and was recently told that for the past 6 years there are none. My reputation has been damaged by the recent allegations, and if I do not receive a prompt public apology, I will be forced to seek relief in court. Prior to that action, I will settle for that apology or an accounting of the harassment charges, which the county now says do not exist. I implore you to spare both of us the cost of such litigation, which I will also seek to recover in damages if I am forced to burden the courts with this matter. We also have an additional comment by Diane Collins asking about the status of the Warren County draft local solid waste management plan for 2019 to 2028. Is there an update on this?
Mr. Hajos?
Yeah, the update at this point is, we received all the comments.
I don't think she can hear you, Kevin.
The update at this point is we received all public comments. We've passed those on to our consultant to provide a responsive summary. Once they provide that responsive summary, we will submit that to DEC.
Thank you.
That is it for public comment.
Okay. Announcements. Yes, Mr. Hajos?
I just have a real quick announcement. As you all know, this was in the weekend of Balloon Fest. Balloon Fest is not going on, but if you go on Facebook, they do have a virtual Balloon Fest. I think it's for the Balloon Festival in Southern Arizona.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
No.
Moved by Supervisor Hogan, seconded by Supervisor Wild. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Away we go.